we can start in this passage with the word at, which is just like the word said, so it means but. And then the subject is regina, which is the queen, referring to Dido. And then after that, we have an ablative absolute. So an ablative noun and then an ablative participle agreeing with it. And the ablative noun is pura here, which is a funeral pyre. And the participle agreeing with it is erecta, which means having been set up or having been erected. So literally with a funeral pyre having been erected. And then we have in plus ablative, meaning in, and we've got an adjective, penetrali, and then the noun sede. Now sede, sedes means your home, and penetralis is an adjective that means sort of the middle of something, or the heart of something, as in the English word penetrate, to get to the middle of something. So with a funeral pyre having been erected in the heart of her home, and then sub auras literally means under the breezes, or you could say up to the breezes. That's sub plus accusative there. And then you have this adjective ingenti, which is ablative case because it's referring back not to the queen, but to the pyre, the funeral pyre. So it's described as huge with, and then we have some ablatives here, with tidis, with pine logs, and with hewn oak. So ilike means with oak, ablative case, and secta is a perfect passive participle that means having been cut or having been hewn, H-E-W-N. So that's agreeing with the oak. So huge with pine logs and huge and hewn oak. And then finally, right, regina was our subject in the nominative case. We finally get to the main verb, which is intended. So she hangs, and then the que just, it means and, but you might not want to translate it here since it's a bit awkward to add in English. But she hangs, and then the object of that verb is locum, the place, with garlands. So certis is an ablative plural, and et, she crowns. So the next main verb is coronat, she crowns, and we imagine the object locum again, so she crowns it with, and again we have an ablative phrase, with funeral foliage. So funerea is an ablative adjective, and it's agreeing with the ablative noun fronde, with funeral foliage. And then after the semicolon, super here is not a preposition really, it's more like an adverb meaning on top or something. So on top, and then you can translate toro, which means on a couch. So it would be in prose, it would be in toro, in plus ablative. So on a couch, she, and then the main verb here is locat, so she lays, and then the object is exuias, so she lays the clothes, and que, and then we have another object, so she lays the abandoned sword, relictum einsem. So einsem is a sword in the accusative case, just like gladium, it's the same meaning. And then relictum is a PPP, perfect passive participle from relinquere, to leave behind. So the having been left behind sword. So she lays the clothes and the abandoned sword, and que, so there's a third object, and the third object is effigiem, which means the image, and this would be the image of Aeneas, so you could say his image. And then Dido is described as haud ignara, not unaware. So ignara is nominative, referring back to Regina, the queen Dido, not unaware of the future. So futuri there is genitive case, of the future. Or you could say not unaware of what was to come. And then in the next sentence there, circum, here again, it's not actually a preposition like circum plus accusative. It stands on its own as an adverb. So it means something like roundabout, nearby, there stand altars. So the subject is arai altars, and then the verb is stant, they stand. So roundabout stand altars. And et sacerdos, which is the priestess. And then this phrase, okay, will be very literal for a moment. Ephusa means loosened. So she is loosened. And then crines are hair, or hairs, plural. And this is a use of the accusative that we call the accusative of respect. And it tells you like the part of the body that is affected. So literally she's loosened with respect to her hairs. In other words, she has streaming hair, something like that. It's an idiom that Latin uses, like if you're wounded in the leg, Latin would just put the leg in the accusative, you're wounded with respect to your leg. So the priestess with streaming hair, literally loosened with respect to the hairs. And then we get to the main verb. She tonat, she thunders, and this actually takes an object. So she thunders, i.e. cries out the name of ter centum deos, 300 gods. That's accusative case. And then this word ore means with her voice, literally with the mouth. So she thunders with her voice 300 gods. And then we get a list of some of these gods linked by que, meaning and. So Erebus and Chaos and Tergeminam Hecate. So Tergeminam means something like threefold, and Hecate is the goddess Hecate. And in this instance, her name ends with an N because this is a Greek accusative form. It's still the object of tonat. So threefold Hecate. And then Hecate is then described or rephrased as the tria ora, the three faces of, and then this is a genitive phrase, Virginis Dianae, of the Virgin Diana. And then in the next sentence, so in outline 9 here, the word et here we can translate as also, and then the verb sparserat. This is a pluperfect tense. So she had also sprinkled, and then latices is a plural, accusative plural, which means water. So it's the same as a more poetic version of aquam. So she had also sprinkled water, and then the water is described by this word simulatos, which is masculine accusative plural, agreeing with latices. So she had also sprinkled water simulatos, feigned to be, literally just feigned, and then we have a genitive phrase. So feigned to be, pretended to be, of the spring Avernus. Yes, Avernus. So fontis Averni is a genitive phrase. So the idea is that the water is supposed to be, but in reality it is not, the water of the spring Avernus. And then we have a quite complicated phrase here. So the subject is actually herbai in line 11, so herbs. And then the main verb is quaeruntur, which is present passive. So herbs are sought. And then agreeing with the herbs, you have messai, which is a perfect passive participle, having been cut. And then ad lunam means by moonlight. And then you have this ablative phrase, aenis falcibus. So aenis means made of bronze, and falcibus are sickles, so with bronze sickles. And then the herbs are also described as pubentes, which here means something like juicy, with cum plus ablative, with milk, lacte, and then we have a genitive phrase, nigri veneni, of black poison. And then after this, oh, and by the way, you could put here, after sparserat, since there is the word et, or in fact, sorry, after falcibus there is the word et, so you could say and herbs are sought. You could add that and in there. Then going on to line 12, so also et, and then the new subject is actually this word amor. And amor in Latin means love, but it can also mean a love charm, which I think is what it means in this case. So the love charm is also sought, so quaeritur, again, present passive. So the love charm is also sought. And then the love charm is described as revulsus, which is a perfect passive participle, meaning having been torn. So the love charm is sought, torn from, de plus ablative, the brow, fronte, ablative case, of a nascentis equi. So nascor means I am born. So nascentis here means a newly born. So of a newly born horse, equi. So torn from the brow of a newly born horse. And then praereptus means stolen in advance. So the reptus bit is about stealing, and the prae bit means in advance. So stolen in advance, and this takes dative, which is matri. So matri here means from its mother. And then in the following line 14, we have ipsa, which means she herself. And here this refers to Dido, so Dido herself. And then juxta is an adverb meaning beside. Or in fact, it's a preposition meaning beside. And we could imagine, if you want, a participle before that, like standing beside. And then she is beside the altaria, so beside the altars, with, and then this whole phrase here is ablative, so with holy peace, holy in the sense of sacred, Holy, with holy grain, molla, and hands, manibus, ablative plural. And then she is described a bit more. So we have another of these accusatives of respect. So literally, Dido is exuta, she's stripped. And then the accusative of respect is unum pedem, with respect to one foot. She's stripped on one foot from or by or with the fastenings, vinclis, ablative plural. In other words, one of her feet is now unsandaled. The sandal has been removed from one of her feet. Literally stripped in respect of one foot by the fastenings, or less literally, one foot unsandaled. And then she's also described as recincta. She's described as unbound in dress, in veste. Literally unbound in dress, or less literally, with her dress undone. And then she's also described in line 16 by moritura, which is a future participle. So it means about to die. And then finally we get to the main verb. So the subject was ipsa, she herself, and the main verb is testatur. So she calls to witness. And this verb testor is deponent, so it looks passive, but it has an active meaning. She calls to witness, and then the object is the gods, deos. And then we have another object. She calls to witness the stars, sidera. And then we have this phrase, conscia fati, which means aware of her fate. And conscia is ambiguous, really, because it could refer to Dido herself, that she is aware of her own fate, or it could refer to the stars, that the stars, in a sort of religious sense, are aware of Dido's fate. The stars are kind of looking down on her and know what's going to happen. But in any case, we can say she calls to witness the gods and the stars aware of her fate. And then we have a semicolon breaking up the sense. And then in line 17, we go to tum, then. And then we have another difficult difficult sentence here. So she entreats, precatur. This is another deponent verb, precor, to entreat or beg somebody. So she entreats. Si quod go with numen, so literally if any deity. Or in English, we might say she entreats whatever divinity. And then this numen, this divinity, is described as both righteous, justum, and mindful, that's memor. So whatever divinity, righteous and mindful, has care, habet curai. Technically, curai is not the object, it's technically dative case. This is a use which we call the predicative dative. Literally, it means whatever deity has for a care, or has as a care, but in English we would just treat that as a direct object. So whatever divinity, righteous and mindful, has care for, and then really the object is actually amantes. So in other words, habet has as a care, kurai, lovers, so they're the object, amantes, lovers, with a non aequo foedere. So no, this is an ablative phrase, with a not equal pact. So aequo means equal, and foedere is a pact. So with a not equal pact. And this is referring to the fact that Dido has upheld her end of the pact, the marriage. She wants to stay with Aeneas, whereas Aeneas has failed to honour the pact of marriage because he has abandoned her, and so therefore the pact is in some sense unequal.